Call this committee of conference to order. All members are present. Does anybody have anything to discuss?
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
I believe that one of the concerns that the Senate has is that it requires too many senators, which realistically is correct. So I was thinking that perhaps we could add more House alternates so that the senators would not be as pressured to attend as many meetings, if that would be acceptable.
I would like to start with the underlying bill. This is something that we can keep forward.
Yeah, and Senators, could you turn on your mics for the streaming?
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh, for bringing that up. The underlying bill is my bill, and it was filed on behalf of a constituent. In fact, it had been filed last year, not last year, but the last biennium, and it passed the House, it passed the Senate, and unfortunately it was put into an omnibus bill, in which the House decided you folks didn't like omnibus bills, and it died, and there was a request to bring it forward again for a constituent. It's simple. It's just recognizing one day in October as Eczema Awareness Day, and I'm hoping that I can preserve the underlying bill.
Good morning to everybody. The bills memorializing days don't have a great deal of success in the House Executive Departments Committee. The position that I think is fairly unanimous, except on the rare occasion, is that memorializing days are best either celebrated, organized by the group that's interested, or by petition to the governor. And so bills like this don't have a great deal of success in our committee. And in defense of that, I have a little statement I always like to trot out when we're discussing these, is that we have 65,000 pages of RSAs. And I think bills like this are better, or issues like this are better served not adding more law to the books. So that's why it didn't fare well in the ED&A in the House.
I'd like to say that when I introduced the non-germane amendment, I pointed out that if the committee wished, we could attach it to the underlying bill if that was the will of the committee, and it was not suggested by anybody that that should be the case. We all agreed we were not going to pass Eczema Awareness Month. Sorry.
Well, again, this was a request from a constituent, and we do things like this all the time. Our constituents reach out to us for a variety of reasons. It's unfortunate that the House has taken this position. This has not always been the case. I just think that by taking this position, you have silenced the voice of my constituents who came forward with this issue. But this is the will of the committee. I just think that it's not right.
Senator, we all agreed that we'd be willing to sign a petition to the governor to have him declare Eczema Awareness Month. We just didn't think it was worthy of a bill.
If I just may, as I look at this, this is not going into statute. This just proclaims just October of this year, the 2022. If this is a sticking point of moving forward with the full legislation, I mean, I think we may be able to come to some agreement in looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Representative, for that comment, because we do have a number of months that honor different groups of individuals that are in statute. So if we're not going to do this, does this mean that we wipe out all of those as well? Those are inappropriate, and those are recurring every year. If it's not African American month, just February to celebrate African Americans, months that honor women. So those are inappropriate. Those are on our books. We're not going to do those anymore. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's not that they're inappropriate to memorialize or honor any given event or person, but again, from my own personal perspective, first of all, let me address what you said before. A constituent requested a bill. If we passed each bill into law that constituents requested, we'd have maybe 200,000 pages of RSAs instead of 65,000. So I don't take this less seriously, but I do take lawmaking very seriously, and everything doesn't require a law. Anyway, this doesn't dishonor any of the other events or individuals that are memorialized. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to belabor the point. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. The issue is that there has been decisions made that these are the ones we're going to do, and these are the ones we're not going to do. So what is the criteria? What is the criteria? Because we do honor groups, we honor days. I mean, I think it was the last biennium we honored for the town of Littleton. They wanted to do a celebration for the author of Pollyanna. We did that. So what I'm hearing from the House is, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. I mean, they came, they wanted this, so
Yes.
they could honor the author and have a
I
big
think
celebration.
Senator Carson, I think the position has been slowly solidifying on the side of not adding any more permanent days. And it has, as you say, it's developed. The criteria are not yet final, I would say. And I would agree with Representative Goley that yes, since it's, since it's a one-time awareness, we could certainly include that in the final bill. I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, thank you. In regards to the comments about the Senate having, I believe you have here 6. I don't think that there is a problem. I can't speak for the chair in taking that number and reducing it, because I do agree we tend to be very, very busy, and it's not that the work is not important. It is extremely important, but we are often torn in a variety of different places at the same time.
Yes.
And we don't have the same flexibility as House members. And I think it's always good to have as many House members looking at these issues, because oftentimes, especially on ED&A, you have so many individuals that do have practical expertise in a lot of the trades and different types of fields. So I think that reducing the members of the Senate would be appropriate, and increasing the number of House members.
All right, what numbers would you suggest? I think.
How about 0?
We can't have 0.
All right, next offer. Well, there are.
And at 1, you're not going to get any senators. So.
I would say that there's currently 5.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to decrease that to 3, which would allow the division setup and allow one of the advantages of the division setup is we let people who know something, divide the rules by topic.
Mm-hmm.
Have one on HHS and one with DES.
Mm-hmm.
And one with OPLC, and then fit the others in
Mm-hmm.
and around them. And that way we could get House members, at least, with different backgrounds and different specialties to get involved.
I think that's a great idea, because we have talked about if there was a mechanism, because what happens with GelCar, and of course John knows, I know, Kevin knows, I don't know, these other folks, if they've been on Gelcar for as long as we have at different
Not
periods of
nearly.
time. So we wanted to be able to talk to the committees that these bills came out of that authorized rules. And if you have.
I never had that desire.
Oh, well, I have, but if we have those committee members now in a particular section, I think it would be great. They could take that information back to the policy committee and see, are those rules what we thought was going to happen? So I
was thinking that we would talk to the next speaker and suggest that he, appoint the vice chair of every committee that deals with rules and say, well, if you can't do it yourself, get somebody else. Which,
do you
but
agree?
that's
Do you think
a
three senators?
nit, really,
Yeah, I
on
think
getting people
I know
there.
John's like, no.
The problem is always getting people to go, right?
Mhm.
We deal with
Yeah.
it all the time.
Right.
And
people show up.
this would help because you would have only a third as much work, which makes a big difference.
Mhm.
And also, by dividing it into divisions, you would be working on rules that are important to you, that are interesting.
Mhm.
If you're in Health and Human Services and you want to look at what the scope of practice for midwives is, for example, I saw that coming up, that would be important to you, as opposed to, the right to know rules of the procedure for conducting a hearing.
Or dealing with electricians.
Right,
Or
right.
the codes, yeah.
So I think that the combination of having fewer rules to look at and having them be more topical would increase the interest, and I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what do you think about reducing from 6 to 3 for the senators?
Okay with that.
I know John's not okay with that, but
If you're trying to create another body of rule makers, which we already have them, they're paid employees in the different agencies, and they write the rules. Because that's their area of expertise as to how you actually carry things out. And I think it's a great idea to generate more interest from legislators in the formation of legislative initiatives, but you're trying to create another whole body of rule makers. And logistically, I can't see that happening. It's just a really awkward thing to initiate when.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not having been on the Jalcar, is this attempting to create a new body, or is it just increasing the number of individuals on that body to lessen the workload?
The latter.
That's a serious question. I didn't know the answer to that.
No, the legislature, by the formation of JILCA, has the duty to review the rules as written by the agencies and reviewed by the staff to ensure that they meet all the qualifications and requirements. Because, a rule has the force of law, and it's a delegation of our legislative authority. So we make sure that they're doing it correctly and appropriately, and usually they do. But in some cases, there's a question: what's the authority? Or that we have contradictory statutes or confusing statutes, and so it's a matter of interpretation. And knowing something about the field that they're trying to interpret makes it a whole lot easier to make sense of the rule. And so, having been there, I've seen that, you get a rule that somebody's interested in, they'll read it, they'll think about it, and they'll be able to make intelligent comments.
One other quick question, is it, the way I'm reading it, would this be analogous to, in the House, we have Finance Division 1, 2, and 3, similar to that?
No.
Yes. Because each division can approve a rule, and there's a rule of, the base, most rules are correct. So you just look at them and approve it. You need the full committee to make a final objection though, which is analogous to what the finance committee does, to some degree, at least the House Finance.
So another interpretation of what Jolkar does is it verifies that the intent of the legislation has not been exceeded by whatever the rule is.
Mm-hmm.
So why you want some other body to create a rule for then the agency to have to weigh in on? So you're setting up possibly a conflict between this brand new committee and the people whose job it is to write the rules.
My understanding of the plan is that it's not a new committee, it's just a restructuring of an existing committee. And at the same time, hopefully taking the burden off of the Senate. Am I correct?
And taking, I'm sorry. And I think what it's actually doing is streamlining the work. And I think making it easier for Jolkar to do its job. Madam Chair, I know that, I'm not, Madam, you're Chair. Would the House consider trying this out as a pilot program for 2 years and see how it works? Is that something, and if it does, then we can go ahead and just do it all?
I would say that would be acceptable. We can change the law any time, but
Right.
we were talking about it at the staff meeting yesterday, and there will be involving some changes to the committee rules and possibly other procedures, so we would undoubtedly have to make other changes, but I would be perfectly happy to take it as a pilot program. Just put in a repeal.
Okay.
So is this, your comments are in place of a hearing that we did not have in the Senate?
My comments? No, we're here negotiating a piece of legislation. That's what I'm not saying my comments they're my comments for negotiation.
Representative McGuire, so in response to the senator's suggestion, are you saying that after the effective date, there would also be a repeal date rather than redoing this as a pilot program?
Well, I think that's the easiest way to make it.
Okay. I think one of the other issues, because now we've reduced the members of the Senate, cut it in half, you have to increase the House members, so I think it would go from 9 to 12.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we can try that.
Okay. I know you disagree, John.
That's a reduction in what the bill proposes, no?
Right.
Fewer Senate members, more House members.
Right, but it's 9 to 12 will be a reduction in the number of House members proposed in the bill.
No, it's in,
No, 15
No,
total
15.
members.
15 total, so you would have 12 House members, 3 senators.
Okay. And add a repeal.
So we would have a repeal in November? Or no? You want just
January, or
January?
December or January, after the new House, the new legislature is sworn in.
Mm-hmm. So January 1st, 2000, yeah.
God, time is flying.
I know, I had to stop and think, 2025. Okay,
And add back the Eczema Awareness Month.
Yep.
thing I can agree to is bring back Eczema Awareness Month and do
Okay,
away with the rest of it.
okay. All right, so,
I notice there's no other than the vice chairman of JELCAR. There's no other JELCAR members. No? No. And there's 3 members of Legislative Services present here who are not smiling or applauding. Had this had a hearing, I think we would have hashed out.
Senator, there was in fact a hearing. Not in the Senate, I'm
Oh, no,
afraid,
not
but
in
in
the
the
Senate.
House. It was properly noticed as a non-germane amendment, and the amendment was available, and nobody, there was only one person testifying, other than myself and Representative Schmidt.
So then,
Oh, excuse me, two people, the speaker was there.
to summarize then, all we're doing is we're reducing the Senate involvement in JELCAR, alleviating some of the pressure on the Senate, and we're not creating another committee. We're just really expanding the House role to cover for the to the release of some senators. Otherwise, and we're dividing it into divisions.
I think I think, and I'm not gonna speak for Senator Reagan, I think it's the dividing it up into different divisions. I think, but I know how well dividing finance up into divisions in the House works, because each division does the yeoman's work of, with all the departments. And they are very knowledgeable in those divisions about the departments that they work with. And the way that I look at this is, eventually, if this is to continue, you will have that same pattern that happens. And it will hopefully make JELCAR run much smoother than it does now. And make it smoother for the people that are actually serving on JELCAR. Nothing really changes. You're going to have the big meeting that you usually have. The members of the public are going to be welcome to come in and talk about the proposed rules. The only difference is you're going to have individuals that are going to be on these subcommittees who are going to be more knowledgeable on that particular subject matter than the body as a whole, and they're going to be able to advise the body as a whole about the rules, along with the attorneys as well.
Which sounds to me like the perfect scenario.
Having you.
Well, close to.
served on JELCAR.
That is correct.
Mike. Mike.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'm Michael Morrill. I'm the Acting Director of Administrative Rules in the Office of Legislative Services. I'm not here to oppose or support the bill. That's not my function. I do have concerns logistically speaking. I'm not opposed to anything that's been said here, but I think just a simple matter like the word committee in the amendment. If you look at 541A and the manual, the rulemaking manual that all agencies have to comply with, and the committee's own rules, there's literally hundreds of places where the word committee appears. And some of those, there would be no question that it would be, under this bill, it should be the entire committee, but it says committee in the law. So it's going to raise a question of how that functions. I don't know if you have any questions.
So do you see this as a more smooth operation or a more awkward.
I don't know that I have an opinion on that. I think it's going to be awkward if the logistical aspects are not ironed out. If I may, I would invite Christina Muniz, the senior committee attorney for jail car, up to see if she has any points to add.
For the record, I'm Christina Munoz, the senior committee attorney for JELCAR. I think Attorney Morrill is correct. We would have to make extensive changes to this 541A, the JELCAR rules, and the manual. We are currently in the process of updating our entire manual. We're making a lot of technical updates to our process. We're making updates going from, we've gone from paper to electronic, and we've had to suspend portions of the manual just for those changes. And going forward, we would have to stop our current changes to the manual and essentially suspend a lot of it to make sure that it fits with what's happening here. Specifically with the term committee, but also some other issues. For example, I'm not entirely, and I guess I'm a little confused as to what the full committee does versus the divisions and when they would meet. And so we would need to figure that out in JELCAR rules, which would be something that the committee staff would need to rewrite all of the JELCAR rules, and our staffing is of concern, how we'll handle that workload.
Another logistical concern is, when does the committees meet? The divisions, do they all meet on the same day consecutively? I know JELCAR is in a difficult position as far as meeting because you all have other meetings and hearings to attend. So traditionally it's been Fridays during session because there are fewer meetings for members. And in summer it's been on Thursday, because the third Thursday, because members may want long weekends. But if they do not meet consecutively on the same day, that means we're going to have rolling dates for everything: initial proposals, final proposals, committee meetings. We would end up needing 3 rooms, and rooms are tight, and we would need 3 court reporters.
And for the benefit of the many members of this committee of conference who have never served on JELCAR, all rules have a public hearing. Anybody can attend the public hearing, including interested legislators. And that's almost always a question that we on the committee bring up. Was there a public hearing? What was the outcome of the public hearing? And then also, we often wind up with persons who had attended the hearing and who have a great personal interest in it, and then attend the JELCAR hearing and are allowed to provide input at that point.
May I ask a question? I'm not clear on why an extensive rewrite of rules is required. What I've heard so far are just scheduling matters, and there's not a committee in the legislature that doesn't have to deal with scheduling issues. Could you expand on it a little bit? What rules would have to be rewritten that aren't addressed within this short bill already? Thank you.
Right now, RSA 541A and the manual and the committee's rules contemplate a meeting by the full committee once a month, more often as necessary. The process would need to discuss having 3 subcommittees and the full committee. As I mentioned before, there are hundreds of places where the word committee is used. In the amendment, that would mean all of them, but the entire committee, where the word entire committee appears, it would mean all members of JELCAR. But in current 541A and in the manual, there's no use of entire JELCAR, entire committee. So, and there are many instances where that would be applicable and some that wouldn't. So those would all need to be clarified.
To the point, the senator is right, I've never served on JALCAR, but the reason I asked if it was similar to finance is because I do serve on a division of finance, Finance Division 2. And as the senator mentioned, each division tends to have its own expertise in a limited number of areas, and it works very good. So I see this being in a very similar situation. The issue of scheduling issue that I'm sorry, I forget your name, that brought up is that it's a scheduling issue. It's an issue of coordination. I know many people serve on multiple committees. I do, and it can be difficult at time. But at least in finance, when we schedule, we tend to coordinate our activities, and I'm pretty sure going forward, if there were subcommittees of JALCAR, I'm assuming that could also occur there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question. My earlier comments, I said something about it's tough getting people, the quorum, it's tough getting people to these committees. And I'm hearing from you, you don't have an opinion on it, but what I'm hearing you both say is that it's creating more, and it's going to almost like it's going to slow the process instead of streamlining it. And am I hearing that correctly?
I would agree with that. Dave Alaconis, Director of Legislative Services. And responding, or to try to answer some things for Representative Turcotte. While I'm now Director of Legislative Services, I served in the House for 7 or 8 terms, and most of that was on finance, and I was the chair of Division 2. There's a difference between finance and its operations and JALCAR. Finance is created by rules of the House, half a page on how it works. JALCAR is per 541A. I think that's a 50 page law, which is very detailed about the operations of JALCAR. We have the manual, which I think is a couple hundred pages. Is that about right, Mike? Yes. Which details in excruciating detail how the committee and how our staff works. I'm very familiar with how the LBA works with finance and the staffing. Having been there, and when I retired as chair of Ways and Means, we used LBA, of course, because it's all fiscal issues. We only, in the past month, added a 3rd committee attorney, because the Joint Facilities Committee, which OLS is governed by, recognized that we needed an additional person to try to get the work done, because the number of rule requests are increasing, the complexity is increasing, the amount of pages per rule is increasing. We are trying to catch up. And that being said, we are in the middle of a modernization, we are at the front end of a modernization project right now. We have ancient servers and systems. We are moving entirely in a paperless form so that rules are submitted. We've been talking to and looking at states such as Rhode Island and Wisconsin, which have modernized their systems, which will allow for greater public access and certainly access by members of the legislature in accessing rules and accessing the hearings and the process of making rules. We're going to be working on that this summer again. Joint Facilities knows what we're doing and is supporting us, and it's going to take money. Right now, we don't have the staff, I believe, to be able to move in this direction as is found in the bill now.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just hearing what you said, as a lot of work coming forward with a large number of rules coming before, I mean, isn't it important that that workload be divided and not just set on one set of individuals to oversee those rules when they come through, to make sure they're appropriate and reviewed properly? I mean, that's what we're trying to do here, is reduce the workload of what JALCAR has before them. And I just heard you say that there's a large workload coming through with the rules process and what's going on. And I think we're just trying to make sure that when they come through and come before the jail card committee, that they are properly reviewed and the workload isn't a pile of papers this high, but maybe a pile of papers like this.
I don't disagree with that, but we don't have the infrastructure to get there. Simply adding members to the committee, to JELCAR, and dividing it into groups, that doesn't, we don't have the, I don't think we don't have the infrastructure to get there. The changes in 541A, the changes in the manual, the changes in the rules for JELCAR, which are significant also. I think there's other ways to get where you want to go, Representative. We're not ready for it at this point.
Senator Carson.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question of Representative McGuire. Representative, did you hear any of this during the public hearing that you had on the amendment?
No. No one from the jail car staff testified or presented any testimony.
Senator
you.
Carson, staff does not normally appear before House or Senate standing committees. We only show up when we are invited. We did watch the hearing, but we only learned of it moments before it occurred.
May I follow up? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Alcones, as the head of OLS, would have been aware of this happening, and I'm just wondering why your concerns were not brought forward during a public hearing where the committee could have addressed your concerns and fleshed out the things that that we are talking about here in order to make this work.
I personally was not aware of the non-germane amendment hearing until that point. It was a time when a lot of amendments were being drafted both by the House and Senate, and quite frankly, we were inundated, and I was not aware.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What I'm here, and this is stated specifically as a person who's not served on JELCAR, but what I'm hearing is that it's going to be difficult to make this work. But what I'm seeing is that it already doesn't work for the Senate. You guys are, our Senate colleagues are overloaded. My understanding is that often a member can't even make it to JELCAR meetings. So we have a circumstance where it's not working already for half of this team. And I understand that there may be some work involved in making it work overall, but it's already not working, unless I'm mistaken.
As a parenthetical note, there is a JELCAR meeting this Friday. At the moment, we have 1 senator and 5 House members showing up.
Proves the point.
I think it proves the opposite because there's supposed to be more than that.
But you can't command people, and you know that. You can't command legislators to appear.
Correct, and so this is expanding the opportunity for people to fill in as they can.
Or to not. To have an obligation and not fulfill the obligation.
That's true.
Right. Jeff.
Just a quick, it was stated earlier that the manual's being rewritten. How often does that happen?
I believe the last time any amendments were made was 2019, and the full version dates back to 2016. And perhaps 5 times before that.
So I guess my question or concern is, I mean, if we're looking to do something like this, I think it would be something we want to do while they're doing the manual versus passing this next year and coming back and saying, start over and doubling the workload at that point. And that's just the concern I have is if you're writing it now, if we don't do this year and we do the full hearings and come back next year, you're going to be right back at it starting over. So that's just a concern.
Except the modifications that are occurring now, hopefully will be complete in another year or so. Senator Carson.
Thank you. In regards to the comments made by Representative Allegro, what you end up having is a very, very small group of individuals that are going to be, that end up adopting rules for the Senate and for the House that have the force of law, instead of having a full committee representing both the House and the Senate. Very small group of people who just happen to show up that day for whatever reason that they're there. And they adopt the rules, and those rules have the force of law. So what this is trying to do is get more people to show up, to be able to dive a little more deeply into these rules, have more people know about them, and to be able to make a better decision on whether or not to agree or disagree with the rules. And there's a whole nother process for that as well. So, yeah, I do think that it needs to change. The process is not working, and I do think it needs to change.
So can we have an example of where it isn't working?
Senator, how many times does Jelcar object to the rules?
That's an objection to a particular rule.
Correct.
The process, just only from the 10 years that I've just been on this and have been the chair or vice chair for 10 years, it works. There's a process, a highly detailed process.
Correct.
It works.
And Senator, for the 8 years that I was on Jelcar, there were times where people were voting on things where they really had no real knowledge of what they were voting on.
Yes.
And that's a problem. That's a problem.
And now you believe that legislators are going to investigate HHS rules, DES rules.
I think that there will be a better understanding within each division of those rules. Just as Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3 of Finance have a better understanding of the departments that come and testify in front of them. These divisions in Jelcar, or committees, whatever you want to call them, will have a better understanding of the rules of the departments that are coming in who want the rules.
Mr. Chair, perhaps we should take a recess to consider our options.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have a 9 o'clock, then a 10 o'clock, and 11 and 12. I have 8 today, so it's just like, oh my God. Okay.
We'll let you have the room.
Thank you.
Where do you want to go, John? Oh, you want to Okay, Senator.
Good morning, and welcome to the committee conference on Senate Bill 313. As the chair of the committee, I would ask you to join me and ask Senator Carson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I will presume that all members of the committee have received a letter from Executive Director Courtney regarding her thoughts on Senate Bill 313 and the amendments thereto.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that I agree with her that we ought to reinstate the section on the fees for the Medical Technicians Board, which was deleted prematurely. But the other parts that she requested, the Boxing and Wrestling Commission and making the Medical Technicians and Advisory Board, I think are not germane. The boxing and wrestling is certainly not germane. It was never mentioned in any version of the bill.
I think that because it requires licensing, that was the basis upon which we considered it to be germane, that they do have a licensing facility, function.
Senator, I agree with your comment, but that was covered in Senate Bill 330, not this bill. What? No, you concurred with 330.
Oh, okay,
Right,
so
okay.
yeah, so we've already dealt with that.
Right, so we're good with that then, yeah.
It's on its way to the governor.
Yep, so we're basically just are dealing here with the fee.
Right.
The medical, and so as an operating board, they need to have their fee.
I would agree. Does the committee agree?
I agree.
Senator?
If you look on the side by side, it's section 12 and 13 of the Senate bill, which were deleted in the first House amendment, and now we think we ought to reinstate.
I guess my question would be at this point, are there any outstanding issues that are unresolved? Or have we reached agreement on the differences between the House and the Senate?
I have none, but I just want to point out there was two amendments. There was an amendment in ED&A, and then there was an amendment in Ways and Means. I'm here because Ways and Means. And there was Susan Almey's amendment that she did a scrub of all the statutes, and she found more changes that needed to be made, which were
They're on the last two
which are
pages.
in the final version of the bill that's before us. But here, just shorthand. Here, Senators, she added a couple of sections there that did that, just to make sure you didn't miss that.
Mm-hmm. It's sections 31 and 32 of the
And
House
it's also in your packet.
In the packet, yeah.
Representative Rosenwald, it's also in your packet, So she, again, scrubbed the statute. She found some changes that were missing.
I think those were.
Yeah,
those are
and
fine.
those, okay. That's only one.
Yeah.
Right.
We're okay with that. And the issue of the the medical technician board, there was a bill that we received from the House that got rid of that altogether. We did not adopt that. We got rid of it. So the board is still in existence, but the fees were taken away.
Right.
So we just need to reinstate their ability to collect their fee.
Right, not a
Yeah,
problem.
exactly.
Makes sense.
So that's really, I believe that's why we're here. So.
And I would state further that whatever we do here, I think the study of OPLC that we created in 330 can look at that prior to November of
Right,
this year.
they can go ahead, because I think we can all agree that many of these boards are experiencing the same problem of not having quorums. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to give the boards the ability to hold their meetings electronically, which I think would have been very, very helpful, because unlike at municipal, oh, well, I'm not even here.
And you have
Yeah. I apologize, I forgot.
Somebody
I
has to turn theirs off, because,
turn this on.
there you go.
That one of the bigger problems that we discovered, and it's across the board with all these state boards, is the difficulty in getting people to be there physically at these boards. And I think probably in the next upcoming session, we should really consider their ability to hold these Zoom or electronic meetings, because it's very different than a municipality where you have everyone from the same location. These are statewide. And hopefully, if we allow this to happen, we'll get those higher participation rates. We'll get more people that are interested in participating in these boards, and we won't run into these problems. But that's a different issue.
It was
for
a different
day.
bill that passed the Senate and was killed in the House.
Yes,
So we'll have to consider it again.
yes. So,
So then, the House position is not to do the boxing.
The boxing,
it's all go,
all
that's all,
gone.
boxing has never been included in this bill.
Right.
yep,
Right.
yep. So that's already been taken care of in another piece of legislation. So,
Then we're in agreement.
So
I don't remember what the bill number was.
330,
Was it 330? The boxing?
3:30,
Yes.
yeah.
That's
and
all.
there were two bills. There was an 1,100 and something House bill, and then there was 330 that had attached it to the OPLC, and that you concurred with, so.
Okay.
Is boxing and wrestling now transferred to OPLC somewhere
No.
else?
No.
They're currently
No.
hanging nowhere, but we don't have any appropriate legislation to deal with them.
So we'll
I
have
did
to
have
do
a
that next year.
Yeah. Next
I
year
did have a conversation with the Secretary of State's office, and currently the boxing and wrestling is considered administratively attached
Right.
to their office. So I think that gives them provenance to go ahead and do whatever needs to be done. I don't think it comes up too often. We don't have many boxing and wrestling matches in New Hampshire.
So we just have that one particular issue about the fees.
And we were.
And we are in agreement that we should include those two sections from the original Senate bill into the version as amended by the House.
Okay.
Okay? That,
So I,
We're in concurrence?
I'll concur. Okay?
All right.
thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Because it's a Senate bill, Senator Guida does.
And we all sign off.
Okay. Thank you.